Hey everyone, it's Mr. Souther coming at you with a little bit of practice on code.org. We're talking about the revamped Unit 1, Lesson 18, where we're learning about how to cast with variables, right, with different data types. Okay, so we did parts A and B. I want to go over part C and D. So bank account overflow. Let's see what's going on here. Let me go ahead and increase the font size so you all can see. All right. So I'm going to read the to-dos, but basically, a bank needs to ensure that when a balance is adjusted, the adjustment doesn't cause an overflow error. So again, the theme is watch out for numbers getting too big. Okay. So then what we want to do here is we want to go to bank.java, write the increase balance parentheses int amount method to increase the balance of the bank. So it's going to be similar to, I think, what we just did in part B. So first thing I'm going to do is just recognize that there's two different file types. There's bankrunner.java and bank.java. They're two different classes. Obviously, bankrunner has the main keyword on line two, which is a dead giveaway. This is your main class, your tester class, aka quarterback. Okay, so we'll deal with that in a minute. This is going to be what actually executes the code sequentially until it hits a point where it needs to call on certain actions from a different class, which is where bank.java comes into play. We have a class called bank. Again, the class name matches the file name, which is great. I like to, when I'm doing code.org stuff, I like to take a look at what's already there because they're pretty good at leaving hints and things that you might have to use. I have two integer data types of balance and max balance, and I can see max balance, they already set it equal to the maximum value from the integer class, right, which is that big number we've been playing with for the last two parts. I'll see my constructor there that we'll go over later. I see another method that just basically grabs the balance of whatever bank account we're looking at. There's a set balance. Great. Okay. So now I'm going to come down here to the method I'm supposed to write. It wants me to write a conditional to check if the amount increased has caused an overflow error. If it has, do not change the balance. So let's break this down one at a time. So the first thing I'm thinking is, yo, I need to write some sort of conditional to check if amount is greater than the max, which leads to the overflow. So that's what I'm going to check for. So we're going to kind of break this down into bite-sized pieces. So first thing I'm going to do is bust out the if statement, right? And I need to check does the amount, right? So again, that's what's coming into my method. So if you have a bank account balance of 10 grand, sorry, it's not enough to cause an overflow error. But let's check. Let's say that amount is, Elon Musk, 17 trillion or whatever, right? So I'm going to check and see, does that amount, is that greater than what we've already set up here, which is, remember the max balance? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste that because that's already set to the maximum value possible. So the minute my amount is greater than that, then I want it to execute some sort of code. And I'm looking at to-dos. If it has, right, so that's what's going to trigger this line of code I'm about to type. Do not change the balance and return false. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything with the balance, but I'm just going to return false. Now, just keep in mind when the program hits a return, if code runs here, then we exit method, right? So once it hits this return false, it's out. Okay. And by the way, we need a return. Why? Because our method or action we're doing has some sort of data type with it. You'll learn about void later, but for now, we know there's a return type here. And Boolean is true false. Okay, I can see that if what happens if well, let me just double check because I feel like I read that wrong. Write a conditional check if the amount increased has caused an overflow error. Okay. If it has, do not change the balance or return false. Done. If it hasn't, increase the balance by amount. Okay. So here we're going to give it one choice or the other. And this is a good time to think about, well, I should run an if and else um, series of statements, right? It's either you have too much over that you're going to cause an overflow error or you won't, right? It's very clear there. So if it is not going to cause any sort of issues, then we want it to increase the balance by the amount. Let me just check something. There's the balance. Okay. So we have some sort of balance already existing. And then we're going to do balance equals balance plus the amount that's coming in. So if I deposited 5 grand in my $1 million bank account, it won't be greater than whatever the big number was in the billions, I think. So that means that we're good to go here. One thing I just realized in rereading this is we're trying to update the balance of the bank account. So the condition I'm trying to check isn't the amount you're depositing. It should be what? It should be whatever the balance is plus that amount. And I want to use parentheses because I'm a little bit nervous about order of operations here, talking about math. So I want to contain balance plus amount. So if I already had a million and I'm gonna add $5,000, I want a million five to be compared to the max balance. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and let me see. And the last thing it wanted me to do, if it hasn't, increase the balance by amount. At this point, once it hits the else, there's a return down here. That's fine too. Because if this condition where I leak cause an overflow doesn't trigger, it's just going to return true. Let's run this and see if I have any errors, right? It's a good idea to check. And right now I have no errors, so far so good. The method is written, it looks good. There's no obvious errors, so I want to check and see is there logic error. So then to do number two. Oh, and then also it says the balance should be printed regardless of whether or not the operation was successful. Okay, so here's the deal. Let's go back here. Recall that as soon as my code hits a return, if it executes that return, it's done with that method. What I want to do at this point is let's go ahead and print, even though it's going to cause an overflow, right? Well, I know it's going to cause an overflow at this point, right? So what do I want to print is the question. Well, I'm going to go ahead and print the balance plus amount. I don't think I'm worried about an overflow. I'm just going to show it and return false. Maybe something I'll say is just to add here, let's say overflow error occurred, right? And then let's go ahead and add a concatenation to show the balance and the amount. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, the plus sign here in this case with text is a bunch of concatenation, right? And we're talking about US dollars, I think. So let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to run it just to make sure I didn't just mess anything up there, that there's no errors. Perfect. I'm getting nothing. Again, most people won't want to do that, but I highly recommend that you run or test your code every time, or just run it to see if there's errors. Okay, every line you add if you can. Here, same thing. Let's go ahead and print out, because we're not going to hit the return yet. So system.println. No, or I just say your new balance, I should say, is, let's give it a dollar sign, close quotation marks, add whatever the sum of balance and amount is. I'm going to run it again, make sure there's no issues. No issues indeed. Clear the console. Let's go ahead and instantiate our bank object. So again, it's bank as a class. The name I'll say is Brody equals new bank. And then you'll recall that it needs some sort of beginning balance, I believe. And we'll go through constructors more in depth, so just kind of bear with me on this one. This is called a constructor. So notice that it looks like a method, but it's not. There's no data type right here. It doesn't say Boolean, string, or void for that matter. This bank, capital B, matches the file name and the class name. And it says right here, constructs a bank object with a specified initial balance. So we need to put in some sort of balance here, which is an integer. Brody's a rich man, so let's go ahead and give him 100 grand. Okay, now that I have a Brody object created, instantiated, I'm going to run it, no errors, which is great. Let's go ahead and use Brody, my object, to call that increase balance amount. Let's just keep it a simple $100. Actually, let me make it like 555 or 555. Just something where I can see. And ideally, if I run this, it should show me the new balance, which is a very big number. What happened here? So right off the bat, I see some sort of logic error, don't you? Okay, so I'm seeing that so if I add 100,000 with 555 bucks, I should see 100,000, 555. But do you see that there's three extra fives there? So let's find out what's going on there. And I can hear my class students clapping. If I go back here, first off, we know the else was triggered, right? Not the if, because obviously $100,000 isn't more. 100,555 is not more than that big max balance amount. Also, it says your new balance is, right? If there was an overflow, it would have read this code and showed it. So what's going on here? Well, look what I did here because I'm awesome. I did balance plus amount right here. So line 50 calculates the 100,000 plus the 555 bucks correctly. Look what I did here. So you can see this plus sign. Do you notice that it's not actually adding the amount? What is it doing is it's doing a concatenation. Well, why is it doing a concatenation? Once you bring in text and then you try and do other variables, it'll string them along. So what I'm going to do there is get rid of amount. If I rerun this, then I should have the correct dollar amount, which I do, right? So something to keep in mind is, let's say you want to concatenate or string along a bunch of text with numbers, but you want the numbers to actually add. What if we did balance with a parentheses plus amount? So now I've contained these two. I'm just wondering, does Java know to add these two or not? And it does, right? Now I know it's a little bit off, but it did 100,555 right here, plus another 555 right there. Okay. So the rule of thumb here is if you want to string along a bunch of different stuff, but you want if two variables are in fact numbers and you want to do arithmetic, contain them in parentheses. Otherwise, any variable you do the plus sign with, along with text, will default to a concatenation. Okay, so you can see that there's no errors, but what is hard is the logic errors, right? The things that you don't know will be an error until you run and test this. So it's a really important skill to test your code, right, with whatever numbers. All right, so we've done Brody. Let's go ahead and let's make a new object. Let's talk about Mr. Smith, right? Mr. Smith is a very rich man. He comes to the bank with lots of money. Oops, I'm putting in letters too, but I'm just trying to type in a bunch of numbers. Okay. And you'll notice that Mr. Smith decided to go to the bank and he's going to go ahead and deposit $6, $7, right? There's our little meme for the day. Let's see what happens when you run it. We got some problems. Integer number too large. Oh, I guess the number I put in is far exceeds that. Well, let's keep the number more simple, right? I know that's within tolerance, but let's just make it, a very big number. Actually, it'll probably give me another error there. I'm just trying to see if this will trigger the overflow error. What's the problem? Increased balance, number too large. Fine. Again, kind of the fun with Java is how can I break it? It did it. So let me just keep adding one number at a time to see if there's an overflow happening. Doesn't look like we're there yet. One more six. I'm trying to trigger the overflow and it's not working. I'm trying to figure out when we're going to get to it. Let's do another one. Where are we going? Okay, let me see here. It's not triggering. Let me just check what. I forget what the dollar amount is every time. What's the biggest integer? Integer dot max value. What is that going to be? Print it out for me, will you? And then let's get rid of that and make it a buck. Okay, so 2, 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the max value. Let's just do that. Sorry, Mrs. Smith, we're gonna start out with a buck, and then I'm gonna add that max value. Okay. There we go. So you can see that an overflow error has occurred. So at first glance, I'm like, wait a minute, what happened here? The fact that my amount plus the balance should be greater than the integer max value is not working. What if I increase to like $10? Just so I can really test it. There's something wrong with my inequality. Okay, so there's still a problem here. It's giving me a new balance of that. So let's debug, right? Because I'm noticing that this is not occurring correctly. So what's going on? So if the balance plus amount is greater than max balance. So you can see that right off the bat, the else is never triggering, right? It always says your new balance is. So I'm going to try and do this live with you. So I can already see the problem here. Balance plus amount is showing. Let's go ahead and put parentheses around that. This won't solve the problem altogether. Why? Because this is not executing correctly. Okay, let me just make sure I see what's going on. We got an amount coming in. It's going to add the balance plus the amount and to see if it's greater than max balance. What if I just say greater than a buck? I just want to see, does this run correctly? So I'm just trying little things to see, can I get this? And it does. Okay. There's a problem though. Overflow error occurred on the first one, but look at the new balance. Why is that not working correctly? Well, I think what's happening, guys, that you can see is, do you see how the balance plus amount is greater than, let me go back to it, integer dot max value? Recall integer dot max value, as you can see what I printed, is that a positive or negative value? It's a positive value. So I think what's happening here is this doing balance plus amount. That's already resulting in an overflow. Okay. So again, once it does balance plus amount, it's getting to a negative blah 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 number. That negative value is not greater than integer dot max value. Why? Because it is a negative number. Okay. So let's think about this for a second. The only time in banking, in this case, that I'm going to reach amount that's too high, because that's what I'm trying to focus on, right, is this integer dot max value. Well, if I am worried about that, what if I just change the inequality, right? Because I know as soon as the overflow is about to occur, it's going to go negative. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this again. I might have to change some of the numbers I had. Okay. So the good news is the overflow error occurred, calculates correctly. But this guy, now Brody's account balance is also in a problem. So now I'm kind of like, hey, what's going on here? Because this isn't quite the way it's supposed to be. Something else we can check too is because this is always going to be less than. If I want to, is there a way where I can make this negative? Let's try that out. Okay, so if my amount is, or better yet, if I want to keep it greater than, a little fix I can give you that you don't know yet is we have this class called math class, but go ahead and type in this math.abs, and let's do that with balance plus amount. I'm just going to check. Okay, so I see a logical error in that Brody's balance, which is small enough, is getting triggered. So I'm trying to fix that, and I'll tell you what I'm doing. There is what happened here? Something got messed up. What did I do here, Southard? Looks like I need one more parentheses, I think. Let me just try that math.abs. So I want to take the absolute value of that. Let me run it one more time. Okay, it's very much not happy. Why? I can see integer.max value changed. What is the problem here? Looks like I don't have the right amount of parentheses here. I have too many. There we go. Run that one more time. There we go. Okay, so you can see that Brody's is working, but somehow Mr. Smith is not. So I did math.absolute value, balance plus amount is greater than integer dot max value. And then we did the overflow. But the problem is this isn't triggering. Why is that? That's an overflow with a negative. Oh, I see what's happening. Okay. So what's happening here, guys, is it looks like math.abs will change the balance plus amount to a positive, but I think because this whole amount is too big, something's happening where it's not triggering to go greater than integer.max value. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and fix the integer.max value part because it's just not calculating correctly. Okay, so bear with me 1 second here. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do next is clearly there's something wrong. I tried to make the balance plus amount a positive, but I can't because it's just going to go back to an overflow error anyway. So math.abs is not going to work. So what I'm going to do instead is I know that this amount, if it does result in overflow, will always be what? Negative, right? So let's go ahead and see, is this thing ever going to be not greater than integer.max value? What if it's less than zero? So if it's negative in general. So I'm going to put that comment there just so I know. So if balance plus amount results in an overflow, the new number will be negative, right? Or less than zero. Let's go ahead and test this. I might need to fix one more thing. And there we go. It triggered correctly. Cool. Brody's is safe, but Smith is not. Let's test this. And there we go. We succeeded. Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this recording here because that's part C.